Welcome, dear listener. Tonight we embark on a journey through the endless stretches of highway where time bends and the road seems to never end. The Haunted Hitchhiker is a tale of reflection, of choices, and of the unsettling realization that sometimes the thing we are running from is not the world around us, but the very person we see in the mirror. As you settle into a place of peace, allow the gentle rhythm of the road to guide you. The world outside your window fades away, leaving only the soft hum of tires on asphalt and the whispering winds. Let go of the day and allow yourself to slip into a world where past and present collide. Tonight's story will take you down a winding path where every turn holds a mystery, every shadow hides a truth, and every step leads you closer to something you've always known. So take a deep breath, relax, and let the road carry you into the Haunted Hitchhiker. Chapter 1. The First Encounter. The road stretched out before me like an endless ribbon of asphalt, cracked and worn from the years, but still solid enough to carry me away from everything. The horizon blurred into a hazy, golden-brown expanse, the heat of the day shimmering off the pavement. It had been too long since I'd taken a road trip, too long since I'd felt any sense of freedom. My life had become a monotony of work, obligations, and 1,000 small decisions that led to nowhere. I needed this. I needed to clear my head. I had no particular destination in mind, just the road and me. It was the kind of journey that only made sense in your head when you told yourself it would set you free. The only thing that mattered was moving, driving, the hum of the engine beneath me. I glanced at the clock. It was already past noon, and I had been on the road for hours, passing through small, sleepy towns that seemed to fade into one another. I hadn't seen anyone for miles, just the open fields and the occasional sign that advertised gas or food up ahead. The loneliness didn't bother me. There was something calming about being alone in the middle of nowhere. But then I saw him. At first I thought I was imagining it. A figure on the side of the road, silhouetted against the dusty backdrop of the horizon. A man, standing motionless with a thumb outstretched, asking for a ride. His clothes were worn, frayed at the edges, and his face, well, I couldn't make out much from a distance, but it was enough to make me hesitate. I was going to drive past. That was the plan. It was a simple rule. Never pick up hitchhikers. Too many stories, too many warnings. I could feel the impulse to speed up, to leave him behind, but there was something in his stance that caught my attention. Something about the way he stood there, so still, as if waiting for me. As I drew closer, the man didn't move. He didn't even look in my direction. He just kept staring ahead, the kind of stare that suggested he was lost in a thought I couldn't begin to understand. It wasn't until I was almost past him that he turned his head slightly, just enough for me to catch a glimpse of his face. It wasn't his face that stopped me. No, it was the eyes. Deep-set, hollow, like there was nothing behind them but darkness. No expression, no emotion, just waiting. I felt a chill ripple through me, a shiver that had nothing to do with the heat. I didn't know why, but I had to look away. My foot hovered over the gas pedal as I sped past him, the sound of the tires humming over the asphalt like a distant warning. I kept my eyes on the road ahead, trying to shake the feeling that something wasn't right. It wasn't the hitchhiker himself. It was the way he'd looked at me. Or maybe it was the way I felt seen, as if he knew me somehow. Knew something about me that I wasn't ready to confront. A few miles down the road, I reached for the radio, hoping to drown out the unease building in my chest. But the static didn't help. The hum of the engine, the thrum of the tires on the road. Nothing could shake the sensation that I was being pulled in 2 directions at once. One part of me wanted to forget about him, forget about that eerie moment and keep driving. The other part was waiting, like I was being drawn back to him. That's when I saw him again. It was impossible. The highway was long, flat, and empty. I knew I hadn't turned off anywhere, and yet there he was, standing on the side of the road, at exactly the same spot I had passed him just minutes ago, his thumb outstretched, waiting. I slammed on the brakes. My pulse surged, the blood rushing to my head. This was no coincidence. There was no way he could be there again. I stared at him, my foot on the brake, unsure of what to do. His head didn't turn this time. He didn't acknowledge my presence. It was as though he hadn't moved at all. still standing, still waiting. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was a mirage, maybe I was tired, or maybe I was imagining things. But the unease that had settled in my stomach refused to go away. I couldn't look at him any longer. The desire to drive away from him, to get as far from this strange encounter as possible, was overwhelming. But as I drove past again, I couldn't help but glance in my rearview mirror. He was still standing there, in the exact same spot, as if he had never moved. I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't want to make anything of it. I just wanted to forget. But I couldn't. Chapter 2, The Return. I tried to push it from my mind, that hitchhiker with the hollow eyes. It was ridiculous to let something so minor bother me, wasn't it? I was on a road trip, after all. People see things, misinterpret moments, maybe even start to overthink when they've been on the road too long. The isolation does things to you, makes you see shadows in the corner of your vision, hear things in the wind. So I drove. I didn't check the clock or glance at the road signs, just kept my hands tight on the wheel, eyes straight ahead. The landscape stretched on forever. Endless fields, occasional woods, and the rare, crumbling diner that looked as if it hadn't seen a customer in years. I passed all of them without a second thought. It was the kind of driving where you don't even notice the hours slipping by. But then, something caught my eye. It was the same stretch of road, the same flat, unbroken expanse of land, and there in the distance was the hitchhiker. My heart skipped a beat. It wasn't possible. I couldn't have missed him when I drove past just moments ago. The road had been empty. There had been no one, no cars, no people, nothing but the endless sun-drenched stretch of pavement. But there he was, standing again, on the side of the road, his thumb outstretched as if waiting for me. I slammed on the brakes. The car jerked, tires screeching against the heat-baked pavement. My mind raced as I tried to process what I was seeing. How had he gotten there? I couldn't even fathom it. I hadn't turned off anywhere, hadn't stopped. I had driven straight through. I glanced at the rearview mirror. Nothing, no sign of the road I'd just been on. I was back. The man didn't move, didn't even acknowledge my presence as I stared at him, wide-eyed and confused. There was no way this could be happening. My thoughts spiraled as I sat frozen, trying to figure out if I was seeing things, if my mind was playing tricks on me. It was too perfect, too precise. I shifted the car into gear and pulled forward again, slowly this time, keeping my eyes on the figure. He remained there, still and unmoving, his face turned away from me, but I could feel his eyes, feel them burning into the back of my skull like some unspoken message. I drove past him again. And this time, I didn't glance in the rearview mirror. I didn't need to. The unease I felt was palpable, sitting in my chest like a weight. This wasn't right. I knew it deep down. Nothing about this felt right. But it wasn't until much later that I realized I had stopped thinking logically. Instead, a quiet, gnawing instinct began to grow. I wasn't just unsettled. I was being pulled. There was something about that figure, something about the way the world around me felt off. Every fibre of my being screamed at me to turn around and confront it, to ask him who he was, why he was there. But another part of me, some primal, terrified part, kept urging me forward. Just keep driving. Don't look back. I drove for another hour, maybe two. The sun hung lower in the sky, the orange glow casting long shadows across the road. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still in the same place. Time was stretching thin. The land around me seemed to bend, twist in ways that didn't quite add up. And that's when I realized I was going in circles. The sign on the side of the road, the one that had been 100 miles away when I first passed it, was there again, and it hadn't changed. The same dusty diner, the same faded billboards for gas and cheap motel rooms. Everything was exactly the same. No variation, no progression. This wasn't a road trip anymore. This was a prison. My hands gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles white. I couldn't be imagining this. I was awake. This was real. The familiar panic began to rise in my chest, threatening to suffocate me. I tried to turn around. I took the first exit I saw, trying to escape whatever this was. But the more I drove, the more it became clear. No matter what I did, no matter which direction I turned, I ended up at the same place. The same stretch of highway, the same endless expanse of empty road, and always the hitchhiker. Each time I passed him, The feeling of dread grew. I'd seen enough horror movies, read enough ghost stories to know what was coming next. This was a nightmare, something straight out of an urban legend. Some part of me wanted to stop the car, pull over and confront him, ask him why he was doing this to me. But I couldn't. I was paralyzed. My hands clutched the wheel, and my foot stayed firmly on the accelerator. It was like I couldn't not drive past him. Something kept pulling me forward, urging me to continue, to leave him behind. But I wasn't leaving him behind. I was driving in circles. And somewhere deep inside, a horrifying thought began to take root. What if I can't escape? Chapter 3, The Loop begins. It wasn't until the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in a twilight blue, that I realized the full extent of what was happening. I wasn't just stuck on the same road. I wasn't merely passing the same signs or driving past the same spots. I was caught in something much darker. I'd seen it before in the old folklore books I used to read as a kid, stories about people who got lost in time loops, cursed to repeat the same day over and over again. I'd never really believed in them, not beyond the pages of fiction. But now, as I sat behind the wheel, staring ahead at the endless road, I couldn't shake the thought, maybe this was one of those stories. I had no idea how long I had been driving, how many times I'd seen the hitchhiker, but something in the back of my mind whispered that it had been far too many. Each time he was there, waiting in the same spot, his thumb outstretched, his face locked in that same vacant expression. I tried to count the miles, tried to gauge how much time had passed, but the numbers blurred together, twisting and contorting as the road seemed to stretch on forever. It was like I was moving through a space that wasn't quite real, through something that didn't follow the normal rules of the world. I thought maybe I could get out of it. I thought if I just kept driving fast enough, far enough, I would eventually leave this cursed stretch of highway behind me. But every time I checked my mirrors, there he was, standing in the same spot, just as still, just as unnervingly calm. I turned onto another side road, desperate to break the cycle. I drove for miles down a winding gravel-laden path, my tires kicking up dust in the fading light. But when I reached the end, the road opened up to the same familiar stretch of highway, the same diner, the same gas station, and there, standing by the side of the road, the same hitchhiker. I couldn't breathe. My heart was pounding in my chest, each beat a reminder that I wasn't just trapped in a loop. I was caught in his loop. I tried to roll down the window and yell at him. "What do you want?" I screamed, the words feeling useless the moment they left my mouth. There was no reply, no movement, just that endless waiting stare. My eyes flicked to the side of the road. I was at the exact same place I had been the first time I saw him. And the worst part? I had no idea how I got back here. I had driven for hours, hadn't I? Why was everything still the same? Why was I still stuck in this nightmare? The wind outside stirred, pushing against the car, and I heard the faint rustling of something whispering, or maybe it was just the wind. But the longer I listened, the clearer the words became, drifting into my thoughts like a memory I hadn't realized I'd forgotten. You can't escape. I jerked in my seat, glancing wildly around the car. There was no one. No one but me, the road, and the hitchhiker. But the words were so clear. They weren't just in my ears. They were inside my head. My mind was starting to fracture, to bend under the weight of something I couldn't grasp. I tried to make sense of it, tried to understand how this could be happening. Was I losing my mind? Had I driven so far into the middle of nowhere that I had slipped into some kind of fever dream? The world outside the car window looked too familiar, too unchanged. The same fields, the same horizon that never seemed to end. How was that possible? I tried to think of something else, anything else. But no matter what I focused on, my thoughts kept circling back to him. The hitchhiker. Was he real? Was he something I was imagining? Or was he something more, something other? I had to stop this. I had to end this. I couldn't keep driving past him. So I pulled over. The tires crunched against the gravel as I came to a slow stop, the engine still humming in the eerie silence. I sat there for a moment, unsure of what I was supposed to do. I could feel the weight of the air around me, thick and oppressive, as though the world was holding its breath, waiting for me to make the next move. For a moment, I thought I might step out of the car, confront the hitchhiker face to face, but the thought of doing so made me hesitate. What if he was just like the others, those ghosts you read about, whose presence leaves you hollow, changed in ways you can't explain? What if I couldn't handle the truth of it? But I had to know. I opened the door. The cold night air hit me like a punch to the chest. I took a hesitant step forward, my legs stiff, my body unwilling to cooperate. Every part of me screamed to turn back, to get back in the car and keep driving. But I couldn't. I needed answers. The hitchhiker was still there, standing exactly as he had before. I walked toward him, the ground beneath my feet feeling unstable, like I wasn't quite walking on solid earth. The sound of my footsteps echoed in the night, unnaturally loud in the silence. The air felt wrong, thick, heavy, with something that I couldn't name. When I was only a few feet away, the hitchhiker slowly turned his head to face me. I stopped. My heart slammed in my chest, my breath catching in my throat. His eyes were fixed on me, and for a moment I could see something in them. Something familiar. I didn't move. I didn't speak. He raised his hand and pointed at the road. "You're not going anywhere." The words were simple, but they hit me like a hammer. I wanted to turn around and run, to get back in the car and drive as far away from this place as I could, but something held me there. Something kept me frozen, rooted to the spot. I had seen him before. I had seen those eyes, but not like this, not this close. I took a shaky step back, the road, the car, the world around me. Everything blurred for a second, as if I was seeing it through a fog, the edges of reality bending and warping in a way I couldn't comprehend. I had seen him before, but I had also seen myself. Chapter 4. The Hitchhiker's Message. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the hitchhiker. Time had begun to feel irrelevant, as if it was stretching and pulling in ways I couldn't track. The cold air seemed to seep deeper into my bones with every passing second. The sound of my own heartbeat, heavy in my ears, made the silence feel more suffocating, more unnatural. I wanted to move. I needed to move. But something about the way he stood there, motionless, unwavering, kept me rooted in place, a strange magnetism pulling me toward him, despite the growing dread in my chest. Then he spoke again. His voice was low, barely above a whisper, but it felt like a punch to the gut. "You don't know how many times I've been here, how many times we've both been here." The words sent a chill down my spine, and for a moment I wondered if I was hearing things. Was I losing my mind? Maybe I was just sleep-deprived. The isolation of the road, the relentless stretch of it, had begun to chip away at my sense of reality. I could feel myself slipping into something that didn't make sense. But no, this was real. I swallowed hard, trying to regain my composure. "What do you mean?" My voice came out hoarse, unsteady. The hitchhiker didn't respond immediately. He just stood there, his gaze fixed on me, those eyes cold and unblinking. It was as if he was waiting for me to understand something I wasn't ready to see. Then slowly his lips parted again. This time the words came out with a strange finality, like he had rehearsed them for a long time. "You've been here before. Every time you pass me, you think you're moving forward, but you're not. You're stuck, and you're going to keep passing me, over and over again, until you understand." I froze. The world seemed to stop around me. What was he talking about? I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. I glanced back toward the car, desperate for an escape, but the hitchhiker's presence seemed to fill the entire space. He was all I could see now, all I could hear. "You think this is a road trip," he continued, his voice now lower, more deliberate. "But it's not. It never was. You've been on this road before, and you'll keep driving it. You'll keep thinking you're going somewhere, but you're just stuck in a loop." A loop. The word echoed in my mind, and my stomach churned. I couldn't breathe. How could he know? How could he possibly know what I was thinking? But the truth of it, whatever that truth was, began to settle over me like a heavy weight. The unease, the disorientation, the feeling that I wasn't truly making progress. I had felt it before. I had ignored it before, dismissed it as exhaustion or paranoia. But now, with his words hanging in the air, I couldn't deny it anymore. I took a step back, my body trembling. "I don't. What do you want from me?" He tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "It's not about what I want from you. It's about what you want from yourself. This road, this endless stretch of it, it's yours. And you can't leave until you understand why you're here. I shook my head, confusion overtaking me. I don't. Understand what? The hitchhiker's gaze softened, just slightly, but it was enough for me to feel the weight of his words sink deeper. You're stuck in a loop, he repeated, but it's not the road that's trapping you. It's you. You can't run from what you've done. You can't escape your past. The air seemed to grow colder. I didn't know why, but I felt like I was suffocating. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. His eyes, those damn eyes, pulled me in, held me there. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to ask him what he meant, demand answers, but my throat was tight. It was like he was pulling the words out of me before I could even form them. You're not real, are you? The words spilled out before I could stop them. This is all just a nightmare, a hallucination, a dream. The hitchhiker blinked slowly, and for the first time I saw the faintest trace of something resembling pity in his eyes. It's not a dream. This is real. And you're here for a reason. All of this, the road, the repetition, the endless passing of time, it's because you haven't faced what's waiting for you. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I felt like I might collapse under the weight of them. My mind spun with confusion. I didn't know what he was talking about. What was I supposed to face? What was waiting for me? I tried to speak again, but the words wouldn't come. I felt paralyzed, trapped in the space between the hitchhiker's words and the gnawing, terrible realization that he might be right. What if this was a dream, or worse, a curse? What if I was stuck? What if I couldn't get out of this endless loop? The hitchhiker's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. Every time you pass me, you're one step closer to understanding, one step closer to seeing what's been in front of you all along. You can keep driving if you want. You can keep running. He gave a faint, almost amused smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. But you'll never leave this road, not until you face it. I opened my mouth to respond, to shout at him, but the words died on my lips. I felt a sickening sense of dread, a knot tightening in my stomach. His words were more than a warning. They felt like a promise, like something was already set in motion, something I couldn't escape. I turned, almost involuntarily, and stumbled back toward the car. My hands were shaking, my breath coming in short, ragged bursts. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to break free from whatever this was. But the moment my fingers touched the door handle, I knew, without a doubt, that it wasn't over. This wasn't over. I was still trapped. And I didn't know how much longer I could keep pretending that I wasn't the one keeping myself on this road. Chapter 5. The Diner. The headlights cut through the darkness, and the road ahead of me seemed endless. My mind was a haze of confusion, spiraling with the hitchhiker's cryptic words. I didn't know how to escape. I didn't even know if I wanted to escape anymore. The pull of the road, the sense of inevitability, everything felt like it was closing in on me. And yet there it was, a flicker of light in the distance, a small neon sign that blinked intermittently, Dina. I slammed on the brakes. I didn't even think. I just needed to stop. I needed to get out of the car, to step away from the suffocating weight of the road that seemed to hold me in place. My hands were slick on the wheel as I turned onto the gravel lot and pulled into the parking space. I cut the engine, the sudden silence in the car deafening. The din of the road faded, replaced by the quiet hum of the diner's neon sign. As I stepped out of the car, I could feel the crisp night air against my skin. It wasn't the same oppressive atmosphere I had been choking on for hours. It was different here. The air felt normal, fresh even. I walked towards the diner, the yellow light spilling from its windows onto the cracked asphalt. The glass door swung open as I stepped inside, the bell above it jingling softly. The smell of fried food and coffee hit me immediately, grounding me. It felt right, real. The diner was nearly empty, save for a few people scattered at the booths. The low murmur of conversations blended with the clink of silverware and the sizzle from the kitchen. A waitress with a tired smile greeted me from behind the counter, her uniform slightly worn but comforting in its familiarity. "Sit anywhere, Hon," she said, her voice warm. I nodded, grateful for the sense of normalcy. I slid into a booth near the window, the seat cracked with age but still solid. The menu sat in front of me, but I didn't really care what I ordered. I just needed to be somewhere that felt grounded, somewhere that wasn't here. The warmth of the diner was a stark contrast to the cold, oppressive silence I had just left behind. It was a small oasis of reality, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to relax. But the relief didn't last long. I kept hearing the sound of the door opening and closing, of people walking in and out. I kept hearing the bell, but something felt off, like a distortion in the air. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I turned my head slightly. There, sitting at the counter, was a man who didn't belong. He was too still, too quiet, like he wasn't part of this world, this diner. He didn't look at me. His face was down, his hands clasped in front of him on the counter. But I knew who he was, the hitchhiker. My blood ran cold. I was frozen in place, staring at him, unable to move, unable to breathe. It didn't make sense. How could he be here? How could he be in this place, this moment that felt real? This was a diner with real people, normal people. I tried to calm myself, to push the fear back down. I was just being paranoid. I hadn't seen him in the car, hadn't passed him on the road. This was just a coincidence. Maybe I was just so deep in my own mind that I was starting to imagine things. But then, the waitress walked past me, a pot of coffee in her hand. She paused as she passed the man at the counter, offering him a polite smile. "Can I get you anything, Hon?" she asked. The hitchhiker didn't look up. His lips barely parted as he murmured, "Just some coffee." The waitress nodded, walking away, but I couldn't stop staring. I couldn't look away. Was this a dream? Was I losing my mind? I blinked rapidly, trying to shake off the unease that had crept into my stomach. The hum of the diner felt louder now. The clink of silverware, the low murmur of conversation, the sizzle from the kitchen, it all felt like background noise to the overwhelming sense that nothing was as it seemed. I pushed the menu aside, my fingers trembling. I needed to leave. I couldn't sit here anymore. I needed to get back to the car, back on the road, away from this place that didn't make sense. I stood up abruptly, the sound of the chair scraping against the floor louder than I intended. My movement caught the attention of a few people, but I didn't care. I had to leave. I moved quickly towards the door, barely glancing back as I pushed it open and stepped out into the night. The cold air hit me like a slap, but it didn't matter. I was out of there. I was free. I didn't look back. But as I reached my car, I froze. There, leaning casually against the side of my vehicle, was the hitchhiker. He was still wearing the same clothes, that same vacant expression on his face, like he had never moved from the spot I had passed him on the road. I felt a sharp pang of panic. No, this wasn't happening. I had just left him behind. He couldn't be here. But he was. His eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw something else in them, something like recognition, something dark. His lips twitched, a barely there smile. "I told you," he said, his voice quiet but clear. "You can't escape." The words were a sickening echo of everything I had feared. I opened my mouth to scream, to demand how this was possible, but no sound came out. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I tried to tell myself it wasn't real, that I was imagining this, but deep down I knew it was. I had left the diner. I had stepped out into the real world, and yet there he was, the hitchhiker, still waiting, still following. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. But as I fumbled with the car door, trying to steady my shaking hands, I understood something. I wasn't going anywhere. Not really. I was trapped. Chapter 6. The Unstoppable Loop. I could feel the weight of the hitchhiker's stare as I fumbled for my car keys. The air around me felt thick, like the world was pressing in, closing me off from any escape. I finally managed to unlock the door, and with trembling hands, I slid into the driver's seat. The cold metal of the steering wheel felt strangely comforting, like it was anchoring me to some form of reality, but I knew better than to trust it. I slammed the door shut and started the engine, the low hum of the car vibrating through me. My eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the hitchhiker standing behind me, just as I had left him. But the mirror was empty. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing pulse. Maybe this was just a coincidence. Maybe I was reading too much into this. Maybe I was losing my mind. But no matter how hard I tried to push the thought away, something kept pulling at me, something I couldn't explain. I pulled out of the diner's parking lot, the headlights cutting through the darkness. The road stretched out ahead, long and empty, just like it always had, but it didn't feel the same. There was something wrong. Something about the way the world felt. Stretched. It was like everything around me was too quiet, too still. I glanced at the speedometer. The needle barely moved, even though I was pressing my foot down harder on the gas. The road should have been flying past me by now, but it wasn't. Everything was stuck. The weight in my chest grew heavier as I looked at the road ahead. The endless stretch of highway seemed to loop, curling back on itself. I was driving in circles. I didn't even need to look to know what was coming next. I slowed the car, then stopped, my heart thudding painfully in my chest. There, standing at the side of the road, was the hitchhiker. It was exactly the same as before. The same spot, the same stillness, the same outstretched thumb. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think. My mind was on fire, spinning in every direction, and yet all I could do was stare. This wasn't possible. I couldn't keep seeing him. I couldn't keep driving through the same moment over and over. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The diner was gone. I had driven miles, hadn't I? So how was he still here? How was this happening? I wasn't imagining this. This wasn't some bad dream. It was real. I slammed the car into gear and drove past him, my heart pounding in my throat. My hands were slick on the wheel, my mind spinning. I had to get away. I drove for what felt like hours, my eyes glued to the road, barely blinking, barely breathing. But no matter how far I went, no matter how many times I tried to change the route, the road kept pulling me back. The same signposts, the same road markers, the same landmarks. The world had become a twisted version of itself, a place where nothing ever changed, no matter how far I went or how fast I drove. And then, there he was again, standing at the side of the road just as he always had. It was the same moment, over and over. I had to stop. I had to face this. I wasn't going to get out of this loop if I didn't confront it. I pulled over to the side of the road and put the car in park. The engine ticked in the silence, the sound too loud for how quiet everything else felt. The air was still, the world holding its breath. I stepped out of the car and walked toward the hitchhiker, every step heavy with dread. My feet felt like they were dragging, as if the very earth was trying to keep me from moving forward. When I was close enough, I stopped. The hitchhiker didn't move. He didn't look at me. He just stood there, waiting. I swallowed hard, trying to find my voice. I had to ask him. I had to know why this was happening. Why are you doing this? The words came out hoarse, but they were all I had. The hitchhiker's lips parted, but instead of speaking, he raised his hand and pointed at the road. You keep passing me, but you can't move forward. His words were like a slap in the face, cutting through the fog of confusion in my head. I wanted to yell at him, to demand answers, but I couldn't. It was like he had already said everything I needed to hear. I turned away from him and glanced down the road, trying to make sense of it. I could feel the weight of his gaze still on me, but I didn't want to look. I didn't want to acknowledge it. But I had to. I had to understand what was happening. I took a deep breath and turned back to face him, ready to ask him again, to force him to tell me why. But he was gone. The spot where he had been standing was empty. The road was empty. Everything was still. I blinked. Then I blinked again. There was no way he had just disappeared. There was no way he could have gotten away that fast. I stepped back toward my car, my mind racing. The fear was starting to settle in, a cold grip around my heart. I opened the door and slid into the seat, my hands shaking as I gripped the wheel. The engine rumbled to life beneath me, and I pulled away, my foot heavy on the gas. I wasn't going to let this happen again. I wasn't going to let him control me. But as I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The air felt thick, charged. I glanced in the rearview mirror, and there he was, standing at the side of the road. It wasn't possible, but it didn't matter. I knew then that I was never going to escape. Not the road, not him, and not myself. Chapter 7. The Illusion of Escape. The weight of the hitchhiker's gaze felt heavier now. More than just the pressure of his eyes on my back, it was as if the entire world was watching, waiting for me to break. I could feel the suffocating pull of the road, the certainty that I wasn't just stuck in a loop, but that every choice I made was leading me further into it, further into whatever this was. I kept my foot pressed to the gas, trying to escape the feeling, trying to outrun the suffocating tension. I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror this time. I couldn't. I refused to. The headlights cast long shadows across the road, the blackness stretching out in front of me. I pushed the car harder, faster, as though speed could be my saviour. But the more I drove, the more the sense of unreality settled over me. The road ahead never seemed to change. The trees were too still, the sky too dark, as though time itself had been locked in place. But then, something different. A flicker of light up ahead, a break in the monotony. There it was. A gas station, just off to the side of the road, the faint glow of fluorescent lights against the pitch-black night. I pulled over without thinking, almost desperate for a change of scenery. I needed something to break the cycle. The thought of getting out of the car and just standing somewhere that didn't feel stuck was enough to make my pulse race. I parked the car and killed the engine, the silence enveloping me once again. The dim light from the station cast strange shadows across the asphalt. I stepped out of the car, the cool night air biting at my skin. The gas station was empty, save for a single man behind the counter. He looked up as I walked in, offering me a half-hearted smile. He was dressed in a faded uniform, his hair unkempt, his expression bored. A man who had seen the same lonely stretch of road for too long. "Anything I can help you with?" he asked, his voice thick with disinterest. I shook my head, forcing a smile. "Just need a break." I wandered to the back of the station, where the small convenience store shelves were filled with cheap snacks, old magazines, and a few bottles of soda. I didn't need any of it. I wasn't even hungry. I just needed something to ground me. The gas station felt wrong in the same way the diner had. Too normal, too familiar, and yet still off. It didn't belong here. None of it did. I walked back to the counter, my gaze darting between the rows of shelves and the man behind the register. Something in his face, his eyes, the way they didn't quite meet mine, made my skin crawl. I nodded, signaling that I was ready to go, but the man didn't respond right away. He just stared at me, his expression growing more intense. "You're not real," he said suddenly, his voice low and deliberate. The words hit me like a slap. "What?" He leaned closer, his face now shadowed by the dim light overhead. His breath smelled stale, like too much coffee and too many hours spent staring at an empty counter. "You've been here before," he continued, his voice soft but filled with a strange certainty. "You've been stuck here, just like him." He glanced toward the window, where the road outside seemed to stretch into infinity. His eyes met mine again. "You've been passing through the same place for a long time, and you can't get out. None of us can." I blinked, my mind racing, trying to make sense of what he was saying. Was this another trick? Was he in on it? Or was this just another piece of the puzzle, some strange clue in a game I didn't understand? "What are you talking about?" I managed to ask, my voice shaking despite myself. The man leaned back and gave a small, knowing smile. "You'll see," he said, as though he knew something I didn't. I stared at him for a moment longer, trying to piece it together. But all I could do was nod, nervously, uncertainly, and walk back to the door. When I stepped outside, the cold air hit me like a shock. I looked up and down the empty road. The gas station's lights flickered above me, and I felt the weight of every second stretch out before me. It wasn't until I reached the car that I saw him again, the hitchhiker. He was standing near the passenger side, leaning against the car, his eyes locked on mine. It was the same pose, the same blank expression. But this time, something about him seemed different. His features were sharper, more defined, like I could see something beneath the surface that wasn't there before. My blood ran cold. I had just left him. I had driven away from him. I hadn't seen him for miles. How could he be here now? I walked toward him slowly, my legs heavy, my feet unwilling to move. I didn't know what to say, how to confront him, but I had no choice. I had to face whatever this was, whatever he was. But as I approached, something shifted. The world around me seemed to blur. The gas station, the car, the hitchhiker. Everything began to fade, like I was losing my grip on reality. I stopped. My heart hammered in my chest. I wasn't sure if it was panic or disbelief, but my vision swam, and for a brief moment I thought I saw something. Something beyond the hitchhiker. The man standing by the car, his features suddenly rippled, twisted, until for a fleeting moment I saw myself. Older, weathered, tired. My own face staring back at me, eyes wide with the same terror I felt. And then, as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. I blinked, shook my head, and in an instant the world snapped back into place. The hitchhiker was standing there, just as he always had been, his gaze as empty as before. But now I understood something. This wasn't just a loop. It wasn't just about the road. The road was a metaphor. I was living a pattern. The faces, the moments, they were all reflections of me, different versions of me, all caught in the same cycle. The hitchhiker wasn't just a stranger, he was a version of myself, and I had been running from this truth all along. With a cold realization, I turned back to the car and climbed in, knowing full well that this would never end. I wasn't trapped in the loop because of the road. I was trapped by my own choices. Chapter 8. The Reflection. I sat in the driver's seat, my hands gripping the wheel, the reality of what I'd just seen settling over me like a suffocating blanket. The hitchhiker, he was me. Not in the literal sense, not exactly, but in a way that felt deeper, more profound. A version of myself. A shadow of something I could no longer ignore. I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see him standing there, staring at me through the glass, but the reflection was empty. The night outside was still. There was no movement, no sign of him. But I knew he was there. I could feel him. He was always there. I needed to leave. I needed to get away from this feeling, this understanding that I was caught in something that wasn't just about the road or the endless miles. It was about me, about who I was, who I had been, and who I was running from. I slammed my foot on the gas, pushing the car forward. The engine roared to life, and I sped down the road, the headlights cutting through the darkness. The road seemed endless, stretching out before me, but the same oppressive weight pressed down on me. It was as if the road itself was part of the trap. Every turn, every mile, just led me deeper into this never-ending cycle. I drove for what felt like hours, the landscape outside the window never changing. The same fields, the same trees, the same signs. Nothing. And then something shifted. Up ahead, a dim light flickered on the horizon. I couldn't make it out at first, but as I got closer, I realized it was a town, a small town, with lights glowing in the distance. A sense of hope surged in my chest. Maybe this was it. Maybe I had finally reached the end of the road. I slowed down as I entered the town, the headlights illuminating the familiar outline of old buildings, small shops and quiet streets. It felt almost normal, like I had found a place that wasn't part of the loop. A place that wasn't stuck. I pulled into a small parking lot near a diner, the lights in the windows spilling out onto the sidewalk. The neon sign buzzed faintly, the words "open" glowing in the darkness. I stepped out of the car. The air colder here, the night sharper. I could almost feel the weight lifting off my shoulders, as though I had crossed some invisible boundary. This place was different. This place had to be different. As I walked toward the diner, my mind raced. I couldn't stop thinking about what the man at the gas station had said, about being stuck, about how he had been stuck. Was this the same for me? Was I just walking in the footsteps of my future self, doomed to live this same moment forever? I entered the diner, the bell above the door jingling softly as I stepped inside. It was warm here, cozy, with the smell of coffee and fried food filling the air. The hum of quiet conversations and the clink of plates and cups made the place feel alive. Real. There were a few patrons seated at the counter, and the waitress behind it gave me a tired but friendly smile. She was in her late 30s, maybe early 40s, her face worn from years of late nights and endless shifts. "What can I get you?" she asked, her voice soft but welcoming. I slid onto one of the stools, the leather creaking under me. "Coffee, black," I muttered. My throat was dry, the words coming out rough and unsteady. I didn't know what to say, didn't know how to explain what had been happening. The waitress nodded and poured a steaming cup of coffee, setting it in front of me. I took a sip, the bitterness coating my tongue. It was familiar, comforting, almost like I was finally back in a world I could recognize. But then I looked up. and I saw him again. The hitchhiker. He was sitting at the far end of the diner, his eyes fixed on me. His face was the same as it always was, blank, empty, devoid of any emotion. But now there was something else, something I hadn't seen before. He was older. I blinked, unsure if I was seeing things, but when I looked again, it was undeniable. The man sitting at the counter, with the same hollow eyes, the same quiet stillness, was a version of me, older, tired, worn. I almost choked on the sip of coffee I had taken, my mind reeling. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be real. The waitress noticed my sudden shift in demeanour, her eyes flicking to the direction I was staring. "You okay?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came. Instead, I just stood up too quickly, the stool scraping against the floor with an unnerving screech. My heart raced as I stumbled backward, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The man at the counter didn't move, didn't acknowledge me. He just sat there, his eyes still fixed on mine. I turned and rushed out of the diner, the door slamming behind me, the cold night air hitting me like a shock. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was doing. I just needed to get away. I reached the car, my hands shaking as I unlocked the door and jumped inside. I slammed the door shut, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. I started the engine, the sound of it roaring to life, almost deafening in the silence. I glanced in the rearview mirror, and there he was again, the hitchhiker. But now he wasn't standing by the side of the road. He wasn't waiting for me to pass by. He was sitting in the back seat, just behind me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I couldn't face it, couldn't face the fact that I had been running all this time, only to realize that I was already there, already stuck. It wasn't the road that was trapping me. It was me. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasn't going anywhere. I had never been. Chapter 9. The Weight of the Truth. The engine hummed, but it felt hollow now, like I was running on fumes, physically, mentally, and emotionally. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white, but I couldn't bring myself to turn around. I knew he was back there, the hitchhiker, the older version of myself. I wasn't sure what terrified me more, the fact that he was there or that he had always been there. No matter how far I drove, no matter how many twists or turns I made, I couldn't escape him. He was no longer just a strange, unnerving figure standing by the side of the road. He was in the car now. He was in my mind. I drove faster, the headlights cutting through the darkness like blades. The world outside the car had long stopped making sense. It wasn't the landscape that was wrong. It was me. I felt like I was in someone else's life, walking through someone else's memories, just watching them happen. I could still feel the heaviness of his presence in the back seat, the quiet, insistent pull of his eyes on me, but I refused to look at him. I couldn't. I wouldn't. I needed to keep driving. I needed to outrun this, whatever this was. If I could just find a way to make it stop. If I could just find a way to wake up from this. But then something in me snapped. I didn't know when or how it happened, but suddenly I wasn't thinking about escape anymore. I wasn't thinking about outrunning the truth. The truth had already found me. I slammed on the brakes, the car screeching to a halt on the side of the road. My heart pounded in my chest as I sat there, staring at the darkness outside the windshield. The world outside was still, untouched. The night air felt like ice against my skin, as though the world was holding its breath. But there was no denying it now. I took a deep breath and turned around. There he was, sitting in the back seat. His eyes met mine, and I saw the same hollow emptiness in them, the same vacant stare. But now there was something else, something deeper. Recognition. I could feel my throat close up as I stared at him, the older version of me. This wasn't some trick. This wasn't a mirage. This wasn't a game. This was real. Why? The word slipped out of my mouth before I could stop it. I didn't even know what I was asking. Why had I been stuck? Why had I kept running? The hitchhiker didn't speak at first. He just looked at me with that same detached expression, as though I were a stranger, a reflection. But then after what felt like an eternity, he opened his mouth. "You don't remember, do you?" His voice was low, almost a whisper, but it sent chills through my body. I swallowed, my mind struggling to grasp what he meant. Remember what? His gaze didn't waver. You've been here before, all of this. The road, the diner, the gas station, the people. You've done it all before, over and over. It never ends. You keep driving, thinking you're getting somewhere, but you're not. You're just stuck. Just like I was. Just like I am. His words hit me like a tidal wave, and for the first time I felt the full weight of what he was saying. I don't understand. My voice cracked, the fear and confusion clear in my tone. What are you talking about? Why can't I escape? The older version of me didn't speak right away. He just stared at me, as if weighing the right words. You can't escape because you don't want to. Not really. You're stuck in a loop because you've been running from yourself, from the choices you made, the mistakes, the regrets. I froze, the words hanging in the air between us, their weight suffocating. I thought about the road, the endless miles, the constant feeling of déjà vu, and the sinking suspicion that something had been wrong from the very beginning. Genna, all of it, this whole damn trip, had been me running from something I couldn't face. What mistakes? What are you talking about? I asked, my voice shaking. I didn't know what he meant, but I had to know. I had to understand. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes never leaving mine. You think you're driving away from your past. But it's not the past you're trying to outrun. It's you. You're running from yourself. You've been doing it for years. I felt my breath catch in my throat, and I couldn't stop the cold shiver that ran down my spine. The truth was starting to settle in, like a thick fog rolling in. You were me, I said quietly, barely able to process it. It wasn't a question, but a realization. I had been running from myself all along, from the parts of me I didn't want to confront, from the choices I made, the things I did, the regrets that followed me like shadows. The older me nodded slowly. I was you, and now you're me. You've crossed over into the same place I am, the same place we both are, and now you can't escape, because you are the road. The weight of those words settled over me like an anchor. The road wasn't just the setting of my nightmare. It wasn't just a physical place. It was my own life, my choices, the regrets I had buried deep within myself. I had been driving in circles, but it wasn't just the road that was looping. It was me. You've always been here, I whispered, the words barely audible, like I was speaking to myself. The older version of me gave a faint, hollow smile. Yes, and now, so are you. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I had thought I was escaping, that I was running towards something better, something different. But the truth was much darker. I wasn't escaping anything. I had been driving around in circles, trying to outrun myself, but all I was doing was chasing my own shadow. I couldn't keep running anymore. I couldn't keep lying to myself. How do I get out? I finally managed to ask, my voice trembling. The older me looked at me for a long moment. His expression softened, just a fraction. You don't. Not until you face what's inside. Not until you accept it. I took a deep breath, the reality of it settling in. The road wasn't just a place. It was a mirror. And the hitchhiker wasn't just some strange figure on the side of the road. He was a reflection of me, a version of myself I could no longer ignore. It was time to stop running. Chapter 10, The Final Choice. The car felt smaller now, the air thicker. My hands were clammy on the wheel, my chest tight with the realization of everything that had happened, everything I had refused to confront. The older version of myself, the hitchhiker, had finally broken through. There was no running, no escaping anymore. I was stuck, yes, but not just on the road. I was stuck with myself. And yet, despite all the fear and confusion, something in me stirred, something I had buried, a quiet flicker of defiance, of hope. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe, just maybe, I still had a choice. The older me, the hitchhiker, sat silently in the back seat, his eyes still fixed on me. His presence was heavy, like a weight pressing down on me, but this time I didn't feel the same paralyzing fear. His words had landed with a finality I couldn't deny, but I wasn't sure I was ready to accept them yet. I had been running. Running from everything that defined me. My mistakes, my regrets, the parts of myself that I had shoved so deep down, I couldn't even remember the last time I looked at them. But if what he said was true, if I had always been here, always been stuck in this cycle, then maybe it wasn't the road I needed to escape from. Maybe it was myself. I gripped the wheel tighter, the realization sinking in like an anchor in my chest. There was no escape from the road, not unless I faced what I had been running from. I drove, but my mind was elsewhere, lost in a haze of thoughts. The road stretched on, endless as always, but I could feel a new sense of awareness. It was like I had crossed some threshold, like the boundary between the past and the present was no longer so clear. The world outside the car felt like a reflection, a distorted echo of something deeper. "You've always been here." His words echoed in my mind, cutting through the noise, and the realization settled over me like a cold gust. I wasn't the only one on this road. He had been here too, and not just a reflection of me, a part of me. The hitchhiker, the older version of myself, he wasn't just a stranger. He wasn't just a warning. He was the future. He was what I would become if I didn't change, if I didn't confront what I was hiding from. I glanced in the rearview mirror. He was still there, still watching me, the emptiness in his eyes unchanged. But now his presence felt less like a threat and more like a reflection of what could happen if I didn't make a choice. I pulled over, my tires skidding slightly on the gravel as I came to a stop. The world outside was still, quiet. The weight of it all pressed in on me, but I didn't hesitate. This was it, the final choice. I turned around, finally meeting the eyes of the hitchhiker, the older version of me. The moment I looked at him, something shifted, a flicker of recognition, not just between him and me, but between me and myself. "Why are you still here?" I asked, my voice steady, stronger than it had been. I could feel the fear, but it was distant now. The need to run was gone. The decision was mine. The older me didn't speak right away. He just stared at me, his eyes searching mine, like he was waiting for me to understand something. "You can leave now," he said, his voice soft, resigned. "You can go wherever you want. You're free to choose. But you've been given a gift, you know. The road is your mirror, and you've seen it. All of it." I shook my head. "I don't want to run anymore. I don't want to live like this. Not anymore." The silence hung heavy between us. I could feel it now, the weight of my own choices, my regrets, the things I had tried so hard to escape, but they weren't going anywhere. They were here, with me, always. The older me nodded slowly. "Then you've already made the choice." I didn't need to say anything. I understood now. The road hadn't been trapping me. It hadn't been the road at all. It was me, the way I had kept running from myself, from the parts of me I thought I could bury, hide, forget, but I couldn't forget them. I couldn't outrun them. The road, the endless stretches, the hitchhiker, all of it, had been a reflection of what I refused to face. What I was running from was not the road, not the town, not the endless cycle of passing the same spots. It was me. The man I had become by denying my own past, my choices. I had been so focused on the road, on finding a way out, that I had missed the truth staring me in the face. I wasn't trapped by fate or some mystical curse. I was trapped by myself. And the moment I understood that, truly understood it, I knew what I had to do. I pulled the keys from the ignition and threw open the car door, stepping out into the cool night air. The wind bit at my skin, but it felt real. The world felt real again. For the first time, I wasn't running from anything. I was standing still. The older version of me didn't move, didn't speak, but there was something in his expression. A faint flicker of approval, maybe, or understanding. He had already walked this road. He had already made this choice. I looked at him one last time, feeling a strange sense of peace settling over me. And then, without a word, I turned and walked away from the car. I didn't know what would come next. I didn't know what happened after I made the choice to stop running. But I did know one thing. I wasn't stuck anymore. As you drift deeper into your dreams, remember, this story is never truly over. It lingers, like the road that stretches beyond the horizon. If you enjoyed this journey, and if you feel ready to discover more stories that blend mystery, reflection, and the supernatural, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you'll ensure you never miss a new adventure into the unknown. If you found solace in tonight's tale, please consider sharing this with others who might enjoy the comfort of these stories. Leave a like, a comment, or simply let us know how the story resonated with you. We love hearing from you. Until we meet again, may your dreams be calm, your mind at peace, and your journey, whatever road you walk, Be filled with quiet understanding. Sleep well, and we'll see you in the next story.